Vidya Rao is a great friend of HLF, a wonderful musician who kicked off the HLF with her beautiful rendition of Purat Natjayo, and such a wonderful classical musician she is. We love her a lot. Thank you, Vidya Madam, for coming here and agreeing to host this session. I'd now like to invite Siddharth to please come here. They say people like him don't need any introduction, but I will continue to do the introduction. As you all know, Siddharth is an actor. Some of you also know he's a producer. He's a screenwriter and a playback singer. He's from my tribe. He's an MBA from SP Jain Institute of Management. He started his journey in cinema as an associate director to the legendary Mani Ratnam. He has been a lead actor for over 2 decades and has had industry-defining successes in Tamil, Telugu and Hindi cinema. Chitta 2023, produced under his Etaki Entertainment banner, was a box office success and has won many prestigious Best Picture and Best Actor awards. He will be seen in 2 Tamil films in 2025 and is currently filming for a Tamil film and a new Hindi web series for Netflix. Here's to you, Siddharth, a very warm welcome from the Hyderabad Film Festival.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be sitting next to the lady to my left. All of you know Vidya Rao for her incredible contribution to music and literature and art. I know Vidya Rao because she's my mother-in-law. So it's really an honor that, I'm even going to say this is down to nepotism. Thank you, Vidya Ma, for letting me on this stage. And I look forward to this session. Over to you.
Right, this is all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amita, all of the people at the Hyderabad Literature Festival. And thank you, Siddharth, for, I saw Chitta and I told Siddharth that I saw Chitta with Siddharth, in fact. He showed it to me and I said, this is a film that not only has to be watched but discussed. Otherwise, we watch films, we go home and say, oh, what a lovely film, and that's the end of that. But it's when we discuss it, we take the message home, we take it, we discuss it with other people, and we do something about it. That's important. So, Siddharth, congratulations for making a film like this.
Thank you so much.
Extraordinary film, a very brave film, and I think a very sensitively made film. And let me start with that now. I'm just diving right in. This is a film that deals with child rape, the rape of little girls. The number of issues that emerged from this, and for me, if you remember, I couldn't speak to you after that film. I was just sort of, I was in so much emotion. I think the first question I want to ask you is, normally when we think of somebody working, on a film on rape, what we have been used to seeing is men jumping in as the avenging, I won't say angel, because it's a lot of blood and gore. There's a lot of vengeance, actually, revenge, and this is a completely different take. So I want to start with that. How did you first? What led you to think about this film? How did you work with this notion? The protagonist, the main character, is you. It's a man.
So first things first, I just want to give a little context. The film that Vidyama is referencing is a film called Chitta. We had a screening of it this morning at the Hyderabad Lit Fest. Chitta for me is a film about child safety. It's a film about the relationship between an uncle and his niece. But it is also a film with a male protagonist. These are all truths about this film. Why and how we made this film is very important to chronicle, as Vidya said, because prior to us, we were very aware that films about this subject matter were not made regularly and definitely not in the mainstream. So when I made this film, it was the 22nd or 23rd year of my career in films. It released in September 2023. We wanted to make a film based on what the research had told us about true incidents that had happened in Tamil Nadu at the time. And we wanted to make a film that was honest to the subject matter that we chose. I'll explain why I say honest. I knew that being the producer of the film, and you must know I self-fund my films, so Chitta was made with my post-tax savings. All of my films are. So when I was choosing a subject to produce next, I'm sure you will agree with me that there are many more commercially viable films I could have chosen than a film about child safety, which deals with the very triggering social curse of abuse, specifically of children and the most vulnerable in our society. So the first step of making this film was loaded with questions, luckily which I wasn't in a position to be forced to answer, because I was making it with my money, so I didn't have to explain to anybody else how much money this film will make. So that's why it was possible for us to tell this story. And the film ends with hope. I always tell people my film is about a child and it's about hope. It is not about the people who abuse or what should be done with them or crime and punishment. It is about children, the most vulnerable members of our society, women, and hope. I made Chitta for my mother, I made it for my sister, I made it for my wife, I made it for my mother-in-law, because all of their stories don't find their way to the mainstream. Having said that, I was also I had to be the protagonist star of this film, because that was the only way we could bring the story to the mainstream and make sure that we don't get wiped out financially trying to do something great. So it was not that I was being a warrior and I said, even if I die, I'll make this film. The idea was to survive, prevail, and to make more such films. And to make it possible for young creators to believe that if you want to tell a story, you can be honest to it, and you can still continue and prevail and make more films and tell more stories. So that's why I said it's about hope. And the last act of Chitta, for those who've seen it and even for those who've not, the last act of Chitta stays with the child. It does not stay with the revenge or justice or vendetta or socio-cultural politics of masculine avenging. If I had gone in that direction, you must believe me, we would have made maybe 10 to 15 times the profit which we made with the ending that we chose. So we did explore those endings. But my writer, my director and I, we were very clear that even if it makes 10,000 people clap, that is not the direction to take this film, because there is no least common denominator applause in hope and in fighting and in prevailing. When you get applause, you have to question it. So when we are getting applause here for what I just said, that is in the context of what I'm talking about, that the applause has come. And my director was very clear, Arun Kumar, I doff my hat to him, that he wanted to leave the audience in silence. Because he said, we don't have silence anymore in the cinema. And I grew up in the cinema, and we did we did watch marquee films, we did watch the big star vehicles, we did clap and whistle when we saw our matinee idols on screen, don't get me wrong. But we also supported the films that told us stories that we have not had the agency to live in our lives or hear about in our daily life. We had only read about those stories when we were growing up. And it's a sad truth I'm telling you at the literary festival in Hyderabad that we are at the bottom of the calculation pyramid of how many people read books out of 5 lakh people. We are at the bottom of that calculation. When I started working in films 25 years ago, they said 1 out of 60,000 people reads books. Back then in the day, the whole population, we're a country of 140 crore people. That's why the math seems puzzling. It's not 1 out of 1 lakh people here. This is a literary festival. I'm not sure the number is going to be extraordinary here either. I'm sorry to tell you. Today that number is at an all-time low. And that also has to do with our inability as a generation to focus on anything beyond 3 minutes. And we are having to make everything catchy. And we are having to shout everything. So at a time like that, for Arun Kumar to make a film that ends in silence was what Chitta stood for. And I can promise you one more thing, that we wrote a thesis on what we are going to make when we started this film. And the film had 2 very important points from my side, which was in the first 10 minutes, you must forget you're watching a film or that you are subscribing to fiction. After the first half hour, you must believe it's happening to you. So the first part is involvement and suspension of disbelief. And the second part is empathy, because you're putting yourself in the shoes of the character. So that's where we started this journey, and that's what ended up with Chitta. And I can tell you that I have recorded tapes of my director and I talking about this film from 2022. And when I play back those tapes today, exactly what we said we were going to do, we did. So in terms of process, we didn't mess around, because you must understand, we live in a very, very constantly assaulting, well, assault is unfortunately no pun intended, but every Friday a new trend is born. Every Friday a new success story is received, and it travels across the zeitgeist, and it makes creators, writers, directors, producers think, wait a minute, they did this and they succeeded. Should we take an element of that and put it into what we are making? Imagine if you started cooking like this. You started making a chapala pulusu and it ends up with a muddupappu avakai biryani. You don't know what is going on, because every Friday you're changing something new is coming, and ma inti vantalu, and you're taking one new recipe and throwing it into it. Imagine. So the idea was to put blinders on and to stick to what we set out to make, because any film can be made in an infinite number of ways, and each of you who saw the film has the time, agency and audience to say, I don't think you should have done this. If I was you, I would have done this. That's not how filmmaking can ever be made. Also, because as an actor, my feedback loop is very confusing. So if I do a great shot, that's what we say in cinema, kya shot diya? So I do a great shot, everybody on set is mesmerized. They say, I've never seen a performance like this. That film will release 1 year to 1.5 years later, by which time the world might have changed. Then you see the film, and then you tell me if you like that shot or not. How do I improve myself as an actor if my feedback loop is 18 months long? But we came from writing and literature, where the feedback loop was even longer. And the interpretation and the variety of interpretation was even broader, because the subjectivity of the written word is much, much more. So to make a film today itself, because all of you have phones, all of you can make films, all of you can edit, all of you can view, get liked, share, subscribe. So what is it that filmmakers bring to the table that you don't already have? I think all of these answers to these questions I got because it took me my whole career to find and make a film like this properly. And not every film's journey is unique, but every film can be discussed for a different reason. So thank you again for calling me to speak about this film. I hope that answers your question about where this film started and what we were thinking. Also, she's made me promise that I'm going to talk very seriously for the whole chat. She said it's a very important film, you don't do your monkey badmashi, she's told me before bringing me. So if you're finding me very serious today, it's because of her. Okay?
Yeah, I'm a very stern mother-in-law. In our house, we reverse it. It's the boy's mother who's the stern one. Yeah, so I want to get back to the serious parts. This is a feminist film. And I'm delighted, yeah, this is a feminist film. As a feminist, I will say that. And I'm delighted that it's a man who's made it. I think one of the things that struck me very deeply in this and was so heartwarming, I know that things have changed over time. But there are many people here who are probably my age, maybe a little younger, who maybe come from certain environments in which if something happens to a woman, even a child, which is difficult, problematic, abuse, and I will say rape, A, it's her fault. She must have been doing something she shouldn't have done, wearing some skirt which is not right, going somewhere, 12 baje raat ko kahan ja rahi thi, वगैरह वगैरह. And even when people are kinder, that अब वो खत्म हो गई, उसकी जिंदगी खत्म हो गई. You know, there is nothing left of this woman. And this is what I felt, you know, you spoke about the hope and the silence and the way the family holds. I mean, there is a difference between the family of a friend, yes, and the way the father reacts. And the way that you, as the uncle and the mother, react. Shakti also, that wonderful woman Shakti. That she needs the attention, she needs to come back to herself, she needs to be looked after physically and emotionally. And she can be happy, she can live a full life after. And she does, that is what we see. So I want you to speak about that. I mean, this is revolutionary.
Firstly, I must confess, I not only identify as a feminist, I also identify as a feminist ally. And I've done this my whole life. Because I think we live in a world now more so than ever that the word feminism has become a trigger word. In fact, it's become an abuse. And again, in a world of subjectivity, you can't stop any word from becoming good, bad or ugly. Don't forget the English language uses the word dark and black to refer to everything that's bad. So don't get upset if somebody thinks feminism is a bad word. It's just interpretation, right? So as a feminist and a feminist ally, and my director is also a staunch feminist ally, you must, when you get a rewatching of Chitta, or Chinna as it's called in Telugu, ikkada everyone Chinna చూడలేదంటే Hotstar లో ఉంది, please చూడండి. All the intelligence, all the wisdom, all the strength in my film comes through the actions and words of women. If you haven't realized it when you saw it, go back and see it. All the acts of wisdom and hope and strength come from the women of the film. The three specific characters in mind, apart from the two children, of course, there's Shakti, played by Nimisha Sachet, who plays a survivor. And my sister-in-law in the film, played by Anjali Menon, who plays a widow, living with her dead husband's younger brother. So it was, I have to say, I was a male protagonist. When we were at Cannes, I remember one of the heads of programming asked me, back in 2022, what are you making next? I said, I'm making a feminist film. She said, who's the lead actress? I said, I am. I said, just because it's a feminist film, why does it have to be a woman leading it? I want you to think about something that's almost reverse feminism, if you can call it like reverse racism. Just because I'm a man, I can't be the lead of a feminist picture. So, Ishwar is the center of this story. And there's a very important part of the second act of this film, where Ishwar is accused of a crime, an unthinkable crime. He's accused of abusing his ward, his niece's best friend. And that niece's uncle is his best friend. The reason that that is a very important part of this film is because we needed you to see Ishwar also as vulnerable. Where gender doesn't play anymore. Him being a man no longer gives him power in a skewed world. In fact, him being a man makes him without excuse or without any kind of reproach even at that point. There's no conversation after that. There's only, he did it so that you almost color that character. Then when that person is in a state of loss and searching for his child, you tend to feel for him in a different kind of way. Now, what Amma was asking is the last act about vengeance. The safety of our most vulnerable is the responsibility of everybody in society. But over the last many years, or maybe 500 years of civilization, or even further back, the people doing the abuse and the people getting angriest about it are both men. And that was something we needed to examine. So we wanted it that no matter how angry you might feel that somebody did something to your child or your girl or your wife, that your is very important. Because your here is not a question of relationship, it is a question of possession. That somebody touched your property. And the immediate result of that is to put him in his place and show him what we do to men like that. First of all, nobody asked men to come and avenge them. Nobody asked men to take vigilante justice. Nobody. Nobody has asked till now. It is something that men have given to themselves. And so, there are no miracles that happen because Ishwar is a man. So if you notice, there's a very famous scene now which also Chitta was made completely with newcomers. Except for myself, the Tamil audience had not seen the entire cast of this film. And that was very exciting because you forget that people are acting, right? So there's a very well talked about scene where the child is found. And the child is found in a police checkpost. The original draft of that scene had the hero finding the child. It was the first scene we changed in the first version of the script. Saying just because he is the hero, how come he finds the kid in the correct checkpost where she is at the time that her kidnapper is taking her in an auto? How is he? So if we don't stop seeing our protagonist as a hero, why will the audience stop expecting our hero to take revenge? Right? So the person who rescues and is the reason for the rescue of the child is a complete stranger. And she's a woman. And she's the one who's sitting next to a child in an auto and says something is off. And she asks, are you okay? And the child doesn't reply properly. And so she decides to go to the police. And the person next to her says, why are you wasting time? We have to go to work. Time aitundi. And she says, neeki time aitundi, nu vellu. Ikkad nunchi auto kadilnante champesta, she says. And she takes the child to the police. Which is what good Samaritans do, irrespective of gender. But the reason I'm telling you this point is that we needed to show that angels do exist in this world. Angels are gender non-binary. Angels do exist. So just because we are saying that demons are lurking, take care of your children, take care of your people, take care of yourself, we are not saying everybody is a demon. So we are not pointing fingers and saying you're a man, so you are prone to this. No. We are saying the world, Kali Yuga vachindi. We have to protect ourselves and we have to believe in the goodness of others. And that is God. Because the goodness of others is your last way to see an avataram of God today. Devulla vachi kaapadadu. That's what we say. Right? So that was the hope that comes from the people around us and society as a whole, where it's always easy to talk about it from the outside and say that happened to somebody, so this, so that. Only when you imagine it happening to yourself, and then you say, I hope someday when I am in trouble, or when my child or my vulnerable member of my family is in trouble, some angel will come and be there for them. So all of that led to what we created with them. I hope that answers that. Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I think I'd like to pick up again this thing of the Good Samaritans, the angels, the people who come to our rescue. I liked that you said this is the avatar. This is it. This is the truth. This is the God that we see in our midst. I also want to speak about community, because this is also the notion that we think of ourselves, even if we think of the people around us, even if we don't know them, as somehow ours. You know, that we are linked by the common bonds of humanity. We are linked through all the experiences that human beings experience. So I'd like you to, if you would like to talk about this, you know, the ways in which the film also makes you think about the ways in which people come together, maybe for brief moments. All kinds of communities, including the fact of this unusual household. I mean, everybody, when they want to talk about household, they'll say this is the household. There's a husband, there's a wife, there are preferably 2 children, and so on.
So my director wrote something very beautiful in the first thesis of this film. He said, my film should open like a novel, where if we're describing a novel in film and camera terms, we have a camera. We pan that camera onto a world and we go into it. So that this is this, that is that, this exposition, that introduction. Now, in an industry where the hero introduction is an episode, in our film, you just pan the camera and the film begins. And when you pan the camera, you start with the woman. A woman gets on a bus and enters Pioneer town. This is the first shot on script of Chitta. Who is that woman? We don't know. She goes to a public toilet. And there, she calls a woman who has used the toilet before her and says, what is this? What are you looking at? Wash it. So that tells you about that woman in a way that nothing else will. And then she sees a boy and they have a moment, they don't speak. And you know these two know each other. It's up to your imagination what they saw in each other in that moment. And the bell rings, he looks at his watch and he runs out. Because he's forgotten to pick up his child. This is how Chitta opens. So, talking about community and about how we are built as a society. There's education, there's awareness. The only way to make us realize where we need to educate ourselves, where we need to increase our awareness, is to try without judgment and without any kind of almost animosity or hostility. Show the way things are. How are the school system if your child is in a school? Because 50 years ago, what was the thing? Tell your child about the birds and the bees. This was a big thing. That was a big thing. Today it's not that. Today tell your child about good touch, bad touch. That is the world we live in. So whether it's a school, whether it is the law enforcement or the police, and in my film, the school, there are no villains. In the police, there are no villains. There is no need to create an artificial drama. Because, let me again remind you, if Chitta was about a 16-year-old girl and not a 9-year-old girl, I can promise you it would have been a very, very different picture. The audience would have said she asked for it. Because she's 9 years old, fortunately that did not happen. If she was 15, 16, borderline post-puberty, oh, all hell would have broken loose. Because in India, if you read the news that a sex worker was molested and murdered, nobody sympathizes with her. Because apparently, if you're a sex worker, you are asking to be molested and abused and killed at every given instant. That is the country we live in, the world we live in. It's not country specific. So, because it was about a child, it helped us to see the goodness across social fabric and social institutions, and then to hopefully have a conversation about where are we lacking. So you might say, yes, the school, the principal, the teacher, they did this, but ఇది చేస్తే ఇంకా బాగుంటుందని you should feel. What is it about the school system? It is Diwali day one kid has gone missing. The police is not going to say, she would have run off with somebody. If she was a 16-year-old girl, that's what they would have said. She must have run off with somebody, go look. That's how our films depict them, right? Here it is just a little kid is missing. So, in terms of community, the hope was that people from different walks of life who watch the film will not feel that this film is alienating me. It is pointing fingers at me. It is trying to blame me. So the idea was to make Chitta a radically inclusive film. That it should not exclude any member of society. And I will again repeat, the child being 9 years old definitely helped in that. But you also heard me say in interviews before that some people refused to watch this film because they said, these kind of films I don't watch. Which really bothered me. I said, what do you mean by that statement? You can watch very disturbing content and not find it disturbing. That's your bandwidth. But why go out of your way to say that this kind of film I don't watch? It was a question of guilt. So even though we were trying to make a radically inclusive film where everybody feels that this child needs protection, this child needs rescuing, this child needs to come back to what we call normal, and this child should not be limited to her abuse as her identity. That was the end point of Chitta. That 20 years later when this child, my last shot which we had written was her graduation. The shot was a microphone. And they're calling on the head girl valedictorian to come and speak. That is Sundari. And her headmistress defines her in 3 lines. And none of those 3 lines mention what happened to her as a child. That was my hope for this film. That no violence should ever become the principal identity of a human being. Until we ensure this, nobody will come forward with their stories of abuse, and nobody will really be able to come back to what we expect as a normal. It's a very far cry, it's a long way away, but it was just the first step in that kind of an understanding. And so in terms of community, these were the many things that we tackled while writing Chitta.
Thank you so much, and every word that you're saying, it fills me with so much hope, gratitude actually.
She's going to cry now. Please don't tell my wife I made her mother cry.
I just need to ask, do we want to leave time for questions, and is this the time now? Yes? No, I think the important points have. No, it's a beautiful film. If you haven't seen it, please see it. If you've seen it, see it again.
I have no shame in plugging my film. Chinna cinema adi Hotstar lo undi. Family tho paatu, pillalato paatu, please చూడండి ఒకసారి. Definitely గా మిమ్మల్ని disappoint చేయదు ఈ సినిమా. Thank you.
So I think we'll take questions from the audience.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Guys, I'm having a bit of trouble hearing for feedback, so just make sure the mic is. Same thing I tell her, mic as close to your mouth as possible. No. It's your festival.
Hi Siddharth,
Hi.
I'm audible. So, what you were saying about community and how people are represented in film, I think nowadays as we're getting exposed to more world cinema, one thing I noticed was a lot of South Korean cinema and shows and all seem to have a much less cynical view of society. Indian films, we assume the police are corrupt. We assume that men will be sort of having a bad gaze or a male gaze, and there is a sense of mistrust in all the relationships and communities that are represented therein as well. And I found that, again, this was a very random observation, but in South Korean cinema, it seemed to stem more from a place of trust. And maybe that is the society being reflected in film, but also how can we have those kind of reflections in film that can then come back to society if we're talking about cinema as a vehicle for change?
Thank you for that
One
question.
request, please, there are lots of people, to give maximum number of people chance, keep your questions or statements very brief.
See, firstly, the question that you asked me is filled with landmines. Let me explain the landmines in your question, then I'll tell you what my answer is. You said nowadays we are more exposed to world cinema. Who told you? My father's generation, my grandfather's generation was way more exposed to world cinema than we are. Okay? Satyajit Ray, his films used to have traffic jam of pedestrians for 3 to 4 blocks when they released in Berlinale or in Cannes or in Locarno or in Venice. There is no Indian film that does that today, right? And when Satyajit Ray was making his films, nobody in India was watching them, which he himself said. And Satyajit Ray is such a great man, he said, we make films for a mediocre audience. He said that back then. Imagine the guts to say something like that in a country like India. So, the reason I'm debating only that contention is because you are more exposed to world cinema. I don't deny that. Because in your life, as an individual, you are exposed more to world cinema. So, generalizations about our society can be loaded with many dangerous problems, right? The second contention, South Korea. In terms of misogyny, in terms of crimes against women and children, I think you should look at the statistics of South Korea. So again, that's a generalization. So question of trust, I don't think so. Cinema is cinema, right? And as far as how we depict our people in our films, the percentage of the people who are trying to show reality as reality is split in the middle with reality with hope and reality without hope. So it's a binary. And this is the same binary across all filmmaking communities in the world. Right? Leave aside what is saleable, what is making money, what does... Now the cinema is about 1,000 crores, 2,000 crores. I have never heard the budget of any film while talking about it since I started watching films at the age of 5. Right? In the last 3 or 4 years, every discussion about cinema starts with what is the cost of the film and how much it made at the box office. Neither of these has anything to do with if it's a good film or a bad film. And the people who are trying to commercialize and make art take a back seat and commerce take the front seat will convince you about the fact that good film is a good film. Good film is not a good film. If in that definition, that means good film means film makes money means good film is a good film. That's not a good film. So it is individual filmmakers' responsibility how they show society, and it is individual audience members' contribution of how they accept it and make the change. We cannot make it a mathematical equation or worse, a YouTube algorithm where this many people will be drinking the Kool-Aid and this many people will be convinced and this many people will, that's called brainwashing. Cinema's job has never been to brainwash, and it is not capable of brainwashing. Otherwise, so many films have been made about positive, amazing people. They don't become them in real life, no? They continue to be awful people. So you're overestimating cinema's impact on people. So individual cinema filmmaker can impact individual audience if both of us decide to tango together. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
These are the movies we were dragged to by our mothers for a change and not our fathers. So these are the movies with feminist undertones, if not outrightly feminist, and feminist voices in the movies, right? So thanks for doing that. You're welcome. And we want to ask, like what you said the last point, right? So we see movies and we hear anecdotes where movies change a single person, right? To movies change the entire society, we don't have anecdotes for that. Tare Zameen Par and how many parents have changed. And Social Dilemma, I've quit social media. So my question is how you were introduced to feminist sensibilities. What movies? I know it has many other life experiences, but what movies particularly made you sensitized to feminist issues?
I think the first thing is what you said about my choice of films. See, when you're growing up as a kid, you're either brought up with this is right and this is wrong. Right? That's how we're raised as children. I believe I wanted to be in this business when I was 14 or 15 years old, and today when I look back, I'm like, thank God I knew what I wanted to do with my life, because after 3 decades of that, I'm still exactly where I want to be and I'm very happy, right? So there's no right and wrong. There is in your lifetime what you choose to do and what you choose not to do, correct? So you mentioned my films from 15 years ago in Telugu. I'm very proud of my Telugu audience that remembers me for those films. And I'll never forget it because they're the first people who made me a star. Now, when that stardom was coming to me, I used to get scripts where I'm slapping women, doing item songs, pinching somebody's navel, telling a woman what she should do, where she should go. And even if those films were great scripts that would have made great successful films, I just rejected them. You understand? So I might be a far bigger movie star today if I was differently wired. So I think instinctively I did what I liked, and that led to those films. And also once you sign a film, how you are on a film set. I knew that in a film called Bommarilu, till the climax, Hasini is the film. And I was absolutely fine with it. And I used to tell Janelia and the director, please make sure they love her, because if they don't sit through the film till the climax, they won't get a chance for me to say, Mattum mere jaisa. So I have no insecurity with my fellow actors, whether they are male, female, inanimate or animals. So that is also not something that I learned from somewhere, it's just the way I am wired. Now, because I did those things, 15 years later I meet women my age in the airport who come and say, Sidhu neeku telusa, you are the boy in the films that we wanted to meet in real life. And we loved you for the right reasons. You were respectful to women, you were good with your parents, you were good with children, you had a good sense of humor. You looked cute. You know what I mean? And their kids now watch my films from 15 years ago because they're in that age. And it's such a gratifying, this is not something I can measure in crores, right? But one lady comes and tells me this, or one man comes and says, I wanted to be like you, man. Because everybody else around me was trying to be the aggressive, macho, all that, men, mard ko dard nahi hota kind of a thing. And you were very happy to cry on screen. So I've been crying since my first film. Now you can call that any adjective you want, but I've never been scared to cry. Now you can say, which book did I read to learn this? It's just how I was wired. So then it all comes down to how my parents raised me. Correct? Importantly, how my mother raised me. You understand? So it all comes down to this. All the decisions I've made, like it's a cycle. The seeds that my mother planted in me led to me eventually making Chitta. The seed that my parents and my father is a very, very beautiful, decent, lovely man. And I grew up seeing him. I have never seen my father raise a hand against my mother. I have never seen my father abuse my mother. I have never seen my father bring his frustration home to his family. All that led to me being a certain kind of kid. And they let me dream. Right? And they let me, my mother would make me listen to Mohammad Rafi and you know, Talat Aziz and Talat Mahmood and Hemant Kumar, all the way up to ABBA and Beatles, all the way up to Vishnathan Ramamurthy and Janjala and Ilayaraja, all the way. I have listened to all of it growing up. And she made me watch films from the age of 5. How does it matter to you what language the film is in? Watch. So I have been watching films my whole life. So I think it ultimately comes down to upbringing. And for those of us who are not this lucky to have parents like this, I guess you find those father and mother figures elsewhere. And so what you're looking for will find you. If you take the first option, that means you have been found. But what you're looking for will find you, and I really believe that, which is why this lady is in my life and she's sitting, and her daughter is in my life and we're living together, you know. So I hope that somewhere answers the question. Yeah.
That's a lovely thing. I must say that Huma Qureshi, your co-star in Leela, is another series which I loved. From the same scene, day before yesterday, she said, we have very few men who agreed to be, second fiddle to a woman's
That's the
story.
problem. The moment you use the word second fiddle, I have an objection to that. Which, are you saying that women are always second fiddle just because their name comes second? What is this, your name comes first, my name comes second? Shah Rukh sir said that 10 years back, from today all my heroines' names will come before me. These are all just semantics at the end of the day, right?
I'm going to be the villain here. There are many people wanting questions, but I think I'll have to make it the last question.
Okay, I'm just going to do, is there can I do 3 more questions? I don't mind. Vidya, do you mind if I do 3 more questions? Unless the stage is already, somebody else needs the stage.
Okay, give you the 3 questions.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about, yes. First you ma'am, then you sir. I'm going to give you one more. Okay, you third. Done. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nitya, and as a Tamilian, உங்களுக்கு பார்க்கறது ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம். And hearing both of you speak was truly amazing. And as a lover of films myself, one of my major takeaway from the movie Chitta was the silence. The way you used silence as one of the major driving force in the films. So how did you come up with that idea of using silence as such a powerful tool?
No, it was a jugalbandi because the director came up with the idea and he said, I want to leave the audience with silence. Now, as a producer, if I was a money-minded, business-savvy person, I would have said, are you mad? What do you mean leave the, because in Hindi they say, Matam macha hua hai, which means like, who died? Now, imagine a film in the mainstream cinema ends in silence. And the distributor will call and says, sir, cinema, Goendi, it's gone because silence is not a good thing in the cinema. So we had to agree in the construct. And like I said, see, you're living in a world, you can't please everyone. When I was growing up, they said you can fool some of the people some of the time, you can't fool all of the people all of the time. Today I'm saying, even if you do the most decent thing in the world, somebody is dying, you go and give them water. You feed them. You help them. Even that, out of 10 people, 3 people will say, how dare you do that? So you cannot please everybody all the time, right? So we just went with what we wanted to do with ourselves. We were the audience. When we saw the film, did we feel like cheering in the end? I said, no, the film is about a child. It will end on a shot of the child. That's why it ends on a hospital bed where it does. And then you see the child happily going to, after a year going to excursion. All of these are cinematic liberties. No survivor comes back that quickly. But I said, if we can do cinematic liberty for all sorts of nonsense, why can't we do it for this? You don't ask the question how one guy is, in every film, one man is beating the pulp out of 50 people. Have you ever seen this happen in your life? After 1 or 2 people, his hand will break. But here he's flying, he's doing something else. That we don't mind. Hey, how can a child come back in 1 year? Some genius is asking. You understand? So every 10 people, now we have democracy is a beautiful double-edged sword always. It empowers the individual, but also means that every individual now thinks that they are the most important and they have a right to everything, right? So you have to deal with both. So we chose the side that this is the film we started, this is where it will end, it will be silence.
Hi. So, one of my favorite topics that I've heard you talk about on social media and in other interviews is about the boundaries you would have with crowds and paparazzi and everything, right? So, even today I heard you talk about using your star power in the right way to push the social message forward, right? But it might not always be advantageous, so we see not a lot of stars do that. They will not forego the parasocial relations they have with people that can make them a lot of money. But I can hope that maybe you will advocate for that. And how would you like to see people change the way they interact with celebrities to make cinema as an art more like a more effective medium for?
Firstly, I'm not an advocate. Okay, I'm not a philanthropist. I'm not an advocate. I'm not a soldier. I'm just an actor filmmaker. Okay, so I've been fighting my whole life. I've always spoken truth to power and I've always got punished for it, and I've never come asking for sympathy for it because it's my own decision. I did it my way, right? I am in a place in my life where I'm going to make my art speak, and that's how Chitta happened. Because I cannot compete in the other side. I cannot tell people how to be better filmmakers because then they say, who the hell are you? Then I say, I can't tell you how to be a better audience because they're going to say, who the hell are you? Because there are 1 billion people wanting to be famous all the time. So any advocacy I do is going to get the anger and chagrin of both sides. So why will I do a Mutta Hua Tir and do all this? As far as my relationship with the paparazzi, I believe in history and posterity. I have given interviews in 2006 saying that day is not far where we become like London, where people will follow you and wherever they see you in public, they'll put on a flash and shoot you. And say, Arey, you're famous, it's my right to shoot you. This is what is happening in India today. I go to watch a play, I come out of the play and blinding light. I'm like, what are you doing? They're just following me to my car and then they're making money by selling it online. Now, I don't have a problem with somebody making money off me. I have a problem with them saying that it's their right to do it. Tomorrow if I push one of them, they'll say I attacked a journalist. How is he a journalist? They took a picture of me outside my house and said Siddharth spotted outside his house. What the hell is going on? You understand? It makes no sense. I come out of the airport, sir, airport look. Hey, what do you mean airport look? What does that mean? I'm dressed, I'm going to catch a flight. Who are you to come and take an airport look? They say, no, but other actors are paying to call them. I said, now what do I do? So, and then the worst part is people sitting at home commenting. Hey, look at his attitude. He can't even look at the camera. I'm going from the airport to my car. Why the hell should I stop and give a bite? It makes no sense. And then we have problems with people's children and privacy of the children, India and abroad. You know who I'm talking about. It's scary. So every day a new middleman is born. A middleman is somebody who doesn't do anything of any positive activity, just makes money off being in the middle. So I can't give advice to people how to eliminate middlemen. That's up to you, right? So I can only try to speak through my art quickly. Yeah, that striped gentleman. Sorry, striped T-shirt wearing gentleman. Gentleman is not striped.
అన్న మీరు తెలుగు నేల మీదకి వచ్చారు కాబట్టి మీకు స్వాగతం. నేను తెలుగులోనే అడుగుతాను ఆ ప్రశ్న.
అడుగు.
సో
బ్రహ్మాండంగా అడుగు.
So
one more thing, baby. Last 20 years, it is my pride and joy that I can do what I just did with him in 7 languages. Because I love languages, and I remember when I was 18 years old, I said, if you take care of languages, languages will take care of you. But that has not been rewarded monetarily, but I take great pride and joy in this ability. Brahmandaga prashnalu adugu babu. Cheppu.
సో నా ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ ఏమడగాలంటే, ఇప్పుడు చిన్న సినిమా నేను చూసి 7.5 అయింది, 1.5 year అయింది. సో నాకు కొంచెం ఏమైనా గుర్తు రాకపోతే మన్నించండి. కాకపోతే చివరిలో మీరు ఆశాజనకంగా ఆపారు, అంటే చివరిలో ముగిసింది ఆశాజనకంగా, అంటే అమ్మాయి నవ్వుతూ ఒక హోప్తో ఆగింది. కాకపోతే క్లైమాక్స్ అంటే అప్రోచింగ్ ద క్లైమాక్స్, ఐ మీన్ అప్రోచింగ్ ద ఎండ్, విలన్ ఆర్ ద పెర్పెట్రేటర్ ఒక శవం, తన శవం రైలు పట్టాల పక్కన కొంచెం ఎవరు చంపారో తెలియకుండా ఘోరంగా చనిపోయినట్టు ఉంటుంది. అది దాని వెనకాల మీ ఉద్దేశం ఏంటో అది అర్థం కాలే. తర్వాత ఇంకోటి, ఇక్కడికి వచ్చారు కాబట్టి సీతారామ శాస్త్రి గారితో, సిరివెన్నెల సీతారామ శాస్త్రి గారితో మీ అనుబంధం గురించి, మీరు ఆయన మిమ్మల్ని ఎలా ఆయన మీకు ఎలా ప్రేరణ ఇచ్చారో చెప్పండి. అండ్ వన్ మోర్ థింగ్, if you don't mind, can I meet you at the lounge? I mean the delegates lounge
Two
afterwards?
questions and a proposal. Kurcho first. I'll answer your first question. See, నేను ఇప్పుడే వచ్చే ముందు విద్యామాతో చెప్పా. ఒక సినిమా తీసిన వాడి దగ్గర మీరు సినిమా గురించి నాకు ఇది అర్థం కాలేదు, ఇది నాకు ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయండి అని అడిగేటప్పుడు దానికి కొన్ని ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉంటాయి. There are some problems with that format. Cinema is to be interpreted by the audience. Once you have seen it, if you didn't get it, see it again. You will make up your mind. If you still didn't get it, see it again. You will make up your mind. తర్వాత అర్థం కాలేదని నువ్వు చెప్పలేవు. నాకు ఇది అర్థమైంది, నాకు ఇది నచ్చలేదని నువ్వు చెప్పగలుగుతావు, కరెక్టా? అయినా నేను నీకు సమాధానం చెప్తా. అది నేను ఒక హింట్గా ఇస్తా. చిన్న సినిమా టాక్స్ అబౌట్ అ మ్యాన్ హూస్ చైల్డ్ హెస్ బీన్ అబ్యూస్డ్. ద ఫిల్మ్ టాక్స్ అబౌట్ thinking about the child, not about your anger. Thinking about the child's future and not the child's past. This is the hope. The child survived, so it is possible for us to give this much of life lesson. What if the child had died? Can I go and tell the parent of a child who is dead? Adi ghoranga chanipoyina oka papa. If I go to that parent and say, Chudu Babu, he will slap me. In my film, there is a parent whose child died. That's all I'm going to tell you about what that last shot means. Did you understand what I said? There is a parent of a child who died. నా ఉద్దేశం ఏంటో ఆ పేరెంట్ గురించి నువ్వు ఆలోచిస్తే నీకు సమాధానం దొరుకుతుంది. ఓకేనా? Apart from that, when the theatre audience has given 2.5 hours of their time and their hard-earned money to me, I did not want them to leave the theatre knowing that this demon who you have seen is still alive. So I could have shown him slipping on a banana peel and falling under a bus. Same effect. You should know this guy died. Kukka chavu chachadu. Ani neeku anipinchali. Second question, Siddharth Shastri garu, was the reason that I studied Telugu the way I studied Telugu. The time I spent with him will be time I take to my grave. And till the day he died, he only called me by one word. Santosh is what he used to call me. So ఆయన దృష్టిలో నేను ఎప్పుడు సంతోషంగానే మిగిలిపోయాను. నాకు నా దృష్టిలో ఆయన నాకు దేవుడు, ఆయన నా గురువు, ఆయన నాకు తెలుగు నేర్పించిన వారు ఆయన. బికాస్ ఆయన లిరిక్స్ I was trying to dissect చిన్న చిన్న విషయాలు. I used to go to him అస్సలు సిగ్గు లేకుండా రాసిన మహానుభావుడి దగ్గర వెళ్ళి ఎందుకు రాశారు మీరు ఇప్పుడు అడిగారు కదా, ఇది ఫిల్మ్ మేకర్, అది లిరిసిస్ట్, ఈ దీనికి అర్థం ఏంటి నాకు చెప్పండి, సమాధానం చెప్పండి సార్ అంటే నాకు హీల్ సిట్ అండ్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్. హీ వాజ్ సచ్ ఎ గ్రేట్ టీచర్ అండ్ తెలుగు సినిమా లాస్ట్ ఎ గ్రేట్ టీచర్. సినీ వెన్నెలలో అక్కడే ఉండిపోయారు ఆయన, ఎప్పుడు మనతో ఉంటారు. కానీ ఆఫ్టర్, అండ్ ఐ గివ్ యూ వన్ మోర్ టిట్ బిట్, బిఫోర్ హిమ్ I as an assistant director with Maniratnam sir had the opportunity to work with the great Veturi garu. So నా లక్ చూడు, ఎక్కడి నుంచో వచ్చిన తమిళ కుర్రోడు వేటూరి గారి దగ్గర, సిరివెన్నెల గారి దగ్గర తెలుగు నేర్చుకున్నాడు. శ్రీ చదవటం మొదలెట్టాడు. So that is my connection to Telugu Sahityam and Telugu literature. So I'm very blessed to have these teachers in my life.
Fantastic. And thank you so much.
Since I have all your attention, if you haven't read Sri, please go and read Sri. You will understand after that you will never say Sri before any bloody respectable person's name. Because the person who deserved it most had it both times. Sri. He is the greatest. Please read it.
Wonderful. You really made it our day, Siddharth. Thank you. I know you have a very hectic schedule.
Your stage has a more hectic schedule, that's why you're removing me. I've seen many more questions in their eyes.
Listen.
But it's an in-demand stage, I respect that.
No, I don't want to be the villain, please. I know you're the hero, but don't make me the villain.
That's a good one.
Okay. No, he has taken an early morning flight to be with us, and again he's going back for a shoot tomorrow morning. So yesterday he had a whole day shoot. I'm really, really thankful on behalf of the Hyderabad Literary Festival, all the audience here. And thank you, Vidya Garu. I don't know whether we would have had the opportunity to listen to him. Such an intelligent and such a thinking actor. It's wonderful to have a conversation with you. Thank you very, very much.
you everyone. Thank you for having me. And this was a great session. Let's do it again sometime. Okay? Lots of love. Thank you.